After we introduce the ArrayList class, you can see ArrayList object is very similar to array, but there are some similarity and differences. So that's here we give you all the comparison. So of course, the most different thing is when an array is created, the size, or we say capacity, is fixed. You can access an array using the element, using the square bracket. But when you do the array list, then the initialized size is equal to 0. So make sure you understand the size and the capacity. So now we see how we will create array and array list. We compare with that. So when we create the array, that's the, you see, using the data type and the square bracket. So that's your array variable name. You also use the new, then you give them the capacity. But you see array list, they're using the array list class name, then angle brackets specify the type. Then you have the array list variable name. So then the same thing, use the new to create. So for array, you can access the elements through the index. You're using the square bracket to assign the value. If we want to know the size, they're using the length, that length, to show you the size. But this size actually is capacity, how many you can access. So you cannot really add the new element. The only way you can assign the value to the array is through the square bracket index. You cannot insert a new element. You cannot remove. You cannot remove all the elements. So that's array. So that's the limitation about array. Array, we have the fixed size. So then any variable, any location you want to access that using the square bracket with index. But from the array list, we have more. If we want to using the index to access the object, you use the get method, passing by the index. If we want to update the value through the index, you're using the set, then the first parameter passing the index, then the new value. So when you do the list, that size, that's just mean so far how many elements in your array list. So anytime if you want to add a new element to the end of array list, you use add. You even can add with the index and the value. You can remove any index. So when you remove the index, that means you remove that object located in that index. Or you just simply give them the object, then they can remove that object. If we want to remove everything, you just do clear. So then you can see that's the difference between array and array list. So please make sure you understand what these two objects do. So after you understand the array list, actually array list have few very important static method or the initialization. So one thing is when you have your array, you can create an array list from an existing array. So for example, you see I have a string array. That's string, so I have red, green, and blue. So if you want to convert this existing array to an array list, you just need to pass in this new array. Call the method is arrays.asList. Then passing this array. So using this one in the constructor function. So then we create a new array list. So once you create a new array list, then you can convert. If you create an array, so then you can using this existing array to create another array list. And also we can do reverse. Since you have an array list, right? Can I convert that to an array? Yeah, you can do that too. Okay, so when you do that, actually we call the list to array. So this list is the array list. So dot to array. So I convert this array list to an array. But one thing is, before you do that, you need to create one array, the string array first. So then they will copy over the content from the array list to this array 1. So this one actually you can easily to convert between array to array list or array list to an array. So actually you can see here at the end of our test array list, I add few more lines. So this one actually is our example, how we will convert from an array to the array list. Then you can from an array list to the array. So that you can check with that. Okay, so at the end of this video, I will talk about some static method from the array list. So the first one, let's talk about the sort method. If the elements in a list are comparable, for example, all the integer you can compare. But anyway, sometimes all the object, as long as you implement the comparable interface, we can compare the object. So once your object can be compared, you can using the static methods sort from collection class to sort each element. For example, now I have an integer array. I have some random number. So then we can convert this array to an array list. So then actually array list is one kind of collections. So collections, they have many useful static methods. So to call those static methods, you just need to using the java.util.collections. So then using the class name to invoke the static method. So then you pass in the array list. They will sort this array list. So then you can see you print the result. So that's why here, originally they look like this, but afterward they sort. So those simple code I didn't put in the test array example. But one thing is actually you can continue using this example to copy over the code we have here to try to run the result to see the output like this. So the first static method we talk about is sort. Then we have the maxima and the minima. So the same thing, I have the array value like this. So then we convert to the array list. So then actually we just need to call the java.util.collections. Then you invoke the static method max or mini. You see they will give you the maxima value 95 and 3. So that's maxima and the mini. The same thing, you can copy over then to run on your program. So we have the sort, we have maxima, we have minima, then we have shuffle. So the same thing, if the shuffle is the static method from the java.util.collection. So since here we already have some random number, but you feel like it's not random enough, I just want to remix all the number. So then the same thing, you just need to call java.util.collection.shuffle. So you see, they will have some random sequence to rearrange the data from your array list. So you kind of just remix your array list. So that's this video for. We show you more about the array list. So the first thing, we compare the array and the array list. Then second, we show you some useful static method from java.util.collections. So before we finish this video, I just want to remind you one thing is, when we talk about the array list, remember we have the angle bracket. But this angle bracket actually is for the generic type E. But the generic type E is what? The E should be class. So that's why here, if you try to using the array list to create an int data type array list, this one is invalid. because remember we told you, int mean what? Yeah, int mean primitive variable. So for ArrayList, or in the future, when you see any class, we give you the angle bracket. So this angle bracket, you can specify any data type, but that means any object type. Okay, so they have to be an object type. So if we want to create an integer value in the array list, you cannot using the int. Instead, remember we show you, in Java we have two types of integer. Int just means primitive data type, but your uppercase and integer, they mean an integer object. So if we want to create an array list contain all the integer, you need to using the integer object as that, because array list only can contain object. So that you need to pay attention on that.